All right. So we are just diving into second chances here, and I'm going to share a little bit to kick us off, and then we're going to have a conversation after that. So I invite you to just mute yourselves and kick back for a little information about second chances, and then we will have that conversation together. So starting off, just as a reminder for those of you who were with us last week and some of you who may not have been, our September theme is spiritual psychology and you. And our talk today is called Spiritual Psychology and guess what? Second chances. It's inspired by a couple of things. First of all, it's Grandparents' Day. So for all of you who are grandparents, let's do this. Congratulations. The inspiration from Grandparents' Day is this. I've heard it said that grandparenthood is an opportunity of a second chance at parenting. And some of the grandkids will say they got a way better deal than their parents did, right? Because there's a chance to say, well, this time around, I've learned a few things and I'm going to do differently. So that was part of the inspiration for this topic. The other one is something that I've heard, even though I'm not a golfer by any stretch of the imagination, is called the Mulligan, which is the concept of a do-over or a second chance in golf. Anybody a golfer in this group? No. Okay. Well, see, there are metaphors everywhere as usual, and we can choose them at will, use them at will. So for starters, I want to define again, as we did last week, what we mean by spiritual psychology. So in the most basic sense, we'll say that spiritual is relating to the soul, the human spirit or the soul, and that psychology is relating to the study of the human mind and its functions. We go a step further and realize that psyche, the root of psychology, refers to both the mind and the mentality, as well as the spirit and the soul, and the unconscious. So really, this is a blend of looking at how this works and what it means for us. And of course, we know those things go hand in hand. We have a gentleman by the name of Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of this teaching, which is called the Science of Mind. Sometimes it's called the Science of Mind and Spirit. It's been around since about 1926. And he refers to it as the spiritual psychology or the study of life from the metaphysical viewpoint. What is metaphysics? Metaphysics simply means that we look at something beyond its physical appearance. We look at it in terms of the patterns that it indicates, the principles that it seems to be evident of operating. I'll give you a prime example. A metaphysical observation is, gee, I have an upset stomach. And I realize that the upset stomach is an outpicturing of an upset state of mind. It is a state of upset emotion that is showing up in my body as upset. Maybe you have one of those days where nothing goes right. Back of that appearance of a day not going right was a confused mind and feelings that were all over the place that caused you to not be at your best and have a day of misalignment and confusion. That's what I mean. It's really not very mysterious at all. To us, what metaphysics means is that we look at things to learn from them, where we have been operating either in alignment with or out of alignment with how things work, how they can be for us. And in so doing, we learn where to do our mental, psychological, right, our spiritual, and our other work to align with something better. So that's part of it. Another part of the definition of spirituality for us is that we take all that and we say, guess what? There is a correlation between what we think and what we end up feeling, what we feel and the emotional state we end up in, the emotional state we end up in, and what we kind of select out of all of the infinite possibilities unknowingly, what we make welcome and familiar, what we believe in, and then what we remember and expect. And we create these cycles where we start to repeat the past a lot. So understanding that there's a relationship between what we think and what we feel, our emotional states, and what we make welcome, what we end up paying attention to, what our words are, what our actions are, what we cooperate with, what we select from the infinite array of possible experiences. That is what we mean by this kind of spirituality. It's very much engaged in understanding that correlation between the inside and the outside, right? So when we have the metaphysical observation that there's more to the upset stomach than just taking something for the stomach, there's more than to the messed up day or week or month or patch in life than just solving the problems. We want to get at the cause. We want to get at the origin of those things. So that's what we do around here. When we say spiritual psychology, yes, we're spiritual. We recognize that there is a power greater than us. There is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. We recognize that by whatever name we choose to call it, it has made us in its image and likeness. So we've got more tricks up our sleeves. We have more skills. We have more capacity than we realized. Because for thousands of years, we thought less of ourselves. We didn't know. So we're on this path of discovery. We're on this path of experimentation. We're saying, wow, if there's a relationship between mental confusion and a sinus condition, maybe I'd like to know more about that. If you dig into the works of Louise Hay, she was a student of the science of mind and spirit, and became a practitioner and a minister, and obviously took her work to the moon. And she's a perfect example of this teaching in practice. So that's what we mean. So you can call it a religion, a philosophy, a way of life, or find some other name for it. Just as we give you the opportunity to call this power greater than the self by whatever name you choose. We honor all paths, and you will find pieces of many paths reflected in everything that we talk about and share. So there's that. So the other thing is that when we get to this point where we realize there's a correlation between what's going on in here and what's going on out there, it's like, oh, uh-oh. And often what we do is we start to beat ourselves up. Like, I don't know about you, but I've done this a lot. I've done this many, many times. I have had regret for not awakening to a truth sooner. I have punished myself for not knowing something sooner. I've punished myself for not becoming something sooner. And the truth of the matter is that other than taking our first breath, there's nothing that we know how to do expertly without second chances. Okay, if you want to get really technical, we do have a set of functions that set us off on our way automatically, and then the rest is up to us. But just for simplicity's sake, let's say we do one thing perfectly when we get here, and that's breathe. And the rest we get to learn. We get to learn it by second chances. It's insane how often we expect ourselves and one another to get things right the first time. There's a line in a Billy Joel song about get it right the first time, that's the main thing. Well, that's a line of, you know what? It's impossible. So the strange thing is that we have tried to hold ourselves to an impossible standard of getting things right the first time. And what does that do? That discourages us. Oh, I tried that once and I failed miserably, so I'm never going to do it again. Well, darn, there goes all the possibility in that department, right? How often have we done that to ourselves? How often have we done that to others? How often have we passed that on or passed that around, as the case may be? What if we put down the baseball bat, right? And let's not be the kind of religious person who beats ourselves on purpose. What if instead we say, you know, the infinite gives us infinite chances. So I have a feeling that second chances, third chances, fourth chances, fifth chances are my birthright. What if I accept the gift of those other chances? I stop beating myself up. Say yes to a mulligan, to a do-over, to a second chance. Wouldn't that free me up to access more possibility? I think so. Before I go on, I want to read to you a little bit about what a mulligan is and the effects of a mulligan. So the first thing, these are all from the internet, of course. The first thing is it says a mulligan in golf is when you get to have a do-over, a second try after your first one has gone awry. Now, a mulligan is also this, according to Wikipedia, of course, a second chance to perform an action, usually after the first chance went wrong. All right, and it is best known in golf. Now, here's what someone else wrote, and I don't know who the author was, about the effect of the mulligan. The player who takes a mulligan avoids a penalty and the negative effect on his confidence from starting the round badly. Taking the shot over could put him on the path to a much better score. Don't you like that? I have a feeling that if you're here on Zoom with us right now, or if you're on Facebook Live right now, you're still breathing. Fair assumption. And if you're still breathing, I would argue that you have more chances that you can cash in yet. You may not be able to do everything exactly the way that you did it 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Okay, so what? If we are still residing in a field of infinite possibility, thank you, Deepak Chopra, well, hey, we have second chances. That means there are more things that we can do and more ways that we can do them yet. But not if we have become bound by the judgment that we have placed on ourselves or accepted from someone else about getting it wrong the first time. Not if we think it's not safe to take a risk because if we mess up, someone will disapprove and that would affect our safety. That's not true. It might have been true when you were 4. It might have even been true when you were 13, okay? But you get big enough to get a job and leave the house, change your mind, challenge the status quo, okay? We're all beyond that. So if you're carrying an old belief that says, I don't have a second chance, I messed it up once and I'm done, or it's too late, or whatever, put that in the trash, okay? Call for a mulligan. Ask for a do-over. Stake your claim, cash in one of your second chance chips, and take a second chance on something. If you start this morning by theoretically looking in the mirror, you may recall or notice that there's something going on in your very own physical body that you don't care for very much. Have you given up on any hope of it being any different at all? Is it possible that in a field of infinite possibilities, that your physical experience of your very own body could be improved even by degrees of your willingness to know in a greater way than you've learned to know right now? I'm banking on that because I have some conditions in my body that don't fit with my idea of who I am, and I don't really want to live with them for another 30 years. I'm ready to have them be different. I have nothing to lose by risking believing something different. I have nothing to lose by risking, so risky, thinking, feeling, saying, doing, believing, expecting something different. The worst that can happen is that my belief system will improve, it will broaden, I will be able to see and recognize and make welcome and familiar and have as my experience better stuff than's going on in my body right now. Gee, why not? And I don't have to tell anybody if I am risking thinking something that not everyone thinks. I can keep it to myself. I can tell a trusted group of people who support me, like this one here. Okay, so you also have your life, the body of your affairs. Where in your physical manifest universe, in the body of your affairs, your circumstances, things that happen every day, or something that's happening right now that's just like a freaking comet coming through and disrupting your life. You have second chances there too. And the way that you can set them in motion is to look at the information that life is giving you and say, gee, what if I were to think differently? What if I were to allow that to guide my feelings to be different, to guide my emotional states to develop differently, to guide the words that I say and the things that I do and the things that I believe and pay attention to, make familiar, make welcome, remember, and expect to happen again. You see, you have the power to create a brand new cycle. And even as I said, by degrees, have a different experience. On the outside, it may look like exactly the same thing, but if you're experiencing it differently on the inside, you have begun a healing process that will show up on the outside and change your experience of it. Okay, so we don't stop there, because guess what? Rome is burning, right? Look around. What is happening in humanity? It's like grab something to hang on to, because this is happening. This is happening. And what about the planet? I want to step back and say, whether it's your personal life, personal body, your personal life, humanity as a whole, or the planet, do you think it's useful to wallow in regret and say, I wish I had done better with my time? I wish I had done more with the power I didn't know I had? I wish I had done more? Well, what about the fact that you're still breathing and you still live in a field of infinite possibility? What about the fact that you still have chances and choices and mulligans and do-overs and an opportunity to make a difference if you stop beating yourself up? That's the strategy I'm going for right now. Because I'll tell you, when I think day after day after day after day about how I wish I had known when I was 20 or 30 that eating this or doing that or sitting in my chair too much or skipping my workouts too often would lead to this, that, or the other, or not taking stress seriously would lead to this, that, or the other. I'm giving power to all of that for another day. And I don't want to do that anymore. So I want to make a deal with you. Would you be willing to stop beating yourself up? Would you be willing to explore what your second chances might be right now with your own body, your own life, your desire to have a positive influence on humanity and the earth, and approach this thing that we're going through and this stuff that we're still going into, the more of it, from an enlightened place, from an empowered place? I invite you to consider that you have a mulligan, a do-over, a second chance with everything, and that you can change the timeline. You can rewrite your own history. You can be present, stop mourning the past and fearing the future, and build something new today. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to close this part of our program with a few little housekeeping items, and then we're going to have a conversation, because I want to hear what you have to say about all that. So thank you. Okay. So first of all, of course, I just said it. I want to thank you all for being here. I'm really, really enthused about the strange and wonderful direction of things. And I don't know about you, but I feel so grateful that with all that is shifting, we are getting such an incredible return on our investment in truth and love and harmony and unity and peace and joy and honesty and goodness and all that stuff. We're getting such a great return on that investment. So thank you for being here. Our community is growing. We are learning new things like at lightning speed, and we are connecting with people from other places, and we're not mourning who we used to be. We're celebrating who we're becoming, and we're embracing uncertainty like surfers. So thank you so much for being here.